we're back. Emotional intelligence is maybe a more valid concept. It is, again, an important kind of life skill that we all need. Some of you are English majors. What are you going to do with that? Some people, your friends or family might say, what kind of job are you going to get with an English degree? Well, a lot of companies, especially international companies, want your language skills, your language abilities. So a lot of English majors can get jobs with international companies, especially if you plan your courses right, your major and your minor maybe, learn a little bit about a particular field in addition to English. That might help you get a job with an international company. They want your language skills. And in a company, emotional intelligence skills can be very helpful. You have to deal with people, you have to deal with yourself and managing yourself. So whether it's working in a company or if you are a husband or wife someday, you have your own family, or you work in other kinds of jobs, any kind of job where you work with other people, which is almost all jobs, you will need these kinds of skills. So there are popular websites about this that may not be so good because maybe the people making those websites don't really understand much of the psychology, but if you maybe read books by people who know what they're talking about, really good trained psychologists, that can be helpful. Not all of us learn good emotional intelligence skills in our upbringing or childhood, and a lot of us need to improve on these skills. So it's good to maybe work on this and improve this so that you can be more successful in your career, whatever career you go into, business or other kinds of careers, or any kind of place where you're dealing with other people, or if you're going to be a parent someday or get married someday. These are good skills to work on. So I'm going to ask you some Google form questions about these topics that we've talked about. I'm going to ask you to maybe think about the term pop psychology, and I haven't really defined it properly yet or told you exactly what it is, but before I do that, we are going to talk about some other kinds of pop psychology. Some of these are ideas you've heard of. It's on your handout. So pop psychology beliefs, that section in your handout. There's a list of maybe several things. Let's talk about the first four on the first page. You've probably heard of these. I want you to talk about these and reflect on these before I give you any answers. Are these correct? You've probably heard of these. They're very popular. Some of them have been in TVs or movies for a long time. Some of them are on the internet a lot or SNS. They're pretty popular ideas. First one is the Mozart effect. And that's the idea if you play classical music, Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, Bach, to kids. By the way, the correct German pronunciation is Bach. In Korean say Bach. American or English speakers say Bach. But the correct German is Bach. Is a so you should say Bach. And Chopin, which is through your nose in French, Bach, Chopin. Use your nose, Chopin. So the idea is if you play classical music to your babies, they will be smarter. Does playing classical music to children, to babies, young children, what we call toddlers, young children, and children in general, does it make them smarter? Is it good for their intelligence, their intellectual development? Or what makes children smarter? What can help make children smarter? Classical music, or is there something else to it? What's the origin of this idea? Where did this idea get started? How did it get started? How did it become so popular? The next question is what's called subliminal messages. So I could flash an image, let's say an advertisement, let's say buy Coca-Cola, in front of your eyes, and it's so quick that your your brain kind of sees it, but consciously, you're not aware that you saw something. It's so fast. In the 1950s, a man had an advertising company in New York City. He claimed he was doing this in movie theaters, and he was displaying subliminal messages. So subliminal means it's under the threshold or level where you become aware of it. He was showing subliminal ads, just pop up for like one frame, buy Coca-Cola, buy popcorn. And he claimed in these theaters, more people were buying Coca-Cola and popcorn. Is this true? Can subliminal messages make people buy stuff? Do subliminal messages work? I want you to talk about this and also think about, where did this idea come from? It came from the advertising guy, but is it true? Hypnosis. You may have seen, especially on older TV shows and movies, hypnosis. You're getting very sleepy, very sleepy. Does it work? Can you do this? You're getting very sleepy. Okay. Can you do this to maybe recover lost memories? Maybe a lost memory from your childhood, something you've forgotten? Can you use it to maybe make somebody do something they wouldn't normally do? Hypnotize somebody and make them, bark like a dog in public, in front of an audience. People try to do this, really. Does it really work? Does hypnosis really work, especially to recover lost memories? Another one, do you use 10% of your brain? Is it true that people use only 10% of their brains? Is there any truth to this? And where did this idea get started? I want you to pause the video and discuss these ideas for a while. All right, we're back. Let's talk about these. Mozart effect. Hopefully, you've realized that it's not really true. Classical music can be good for children, babies, in some ways, but not for intelligence. It can be relaxing for them, help them calm down. My son likes to fall asleep. He's 5.5. He likes to fall asleep sometimes with classical music, which is great. It's good for teaching them to appreciate fine music. That's cool. And I'm glad that my son likes it. Is it going to make them intelligent? No. And we're going to come back later to the origin of these ideas. But basically, it does not make kids smarter. What makes kids smarter? Well, about 30% of intelligence, whatever you want to call intelligence, is genetic. It partly depends on whether your parents are smart or not, partly. But it's also a mixture of not only your genetics, but your environment, your upbringing, what you're exposed to. What makes kids smarter? Getting a lot of love and social interaction with their parents. Social interaction, affection, love, psychological stability and security from their parents, that's a big thing. Having a secure, stable environment and a lot of social interaction. They learn their language skills from their parents and talking to their parents, social interaction with their parents. Also, parents that read to kids. Reading to children is really a big thing. It helps them to learn to read, develops their verbal skills, and there is a strong connection between parents reading to children and kids' intelligence. So it's exposure to kind of stimulus, like reading and social interaction and talking and things like that. Can children learn a language from TV? No. They need to learn it from their mothers and fathers and people in their family and close people. Subliminal advertising effect, it's not a thing. This has no effect on people. on their buying decisions. The brain might recognize, oh, I saw that word, Coca-Cola or popcorn recently, I don't remember where, but that's it. It does not affect people's decisions. In order to affect decisions, any kind of message, an advertising message or any message, has to be something that you can think about, consciously process in order to affect your decisions. One frame on a movie screen that says buy popcorn will have no effect on people's behavior. Only if people are aware of it and they can think about it, they can consciously process it. And this is the thing, because I grew up in a very conservative religious environment where there was this rumor that a lot of rock and roll songs had secret subliminal messages. If you played something backwards, they were secret messages telling you to worship the devil or buy marijuana or try drugs. And it's nonsense. You cannot understand language backwards, unconsciously. It's complete nonsense. I might put a link on the website to a video that demonstrates this later on. There's a good video that shows one very famous rock song that's been accused of having secret backward messages. And actually we'll do that later on the course. It's kind of relevant to something we're going to talk about later on. Subliminal messages in music. And short answer, it's nonsense. Hypnosis. Does this have any magical effect on people and their memories or their behavior? No. Hypnosis is just kind of a sleepy state, kind of a prolonged sleepy state where you're more open to suggestion. For example, if you're sitting in a dark room in front of a TV and you've watched a lot of TV by yourself and you're kind of sleepy and the advertisements come on and maybe you think, oh yeah, I need to buy that, because you're more open to suggestion. Let me give you an example of why this is not allowed anymore in police investigations or courtroom testimony. Let's imagine, let's say this is my magic wand for hypnosis, and hypnotize somebody with this. Okay, say, let's pretend I'm a police investigator, and here's somebody we think when he was a child, he was 6 years old, we think maybe he saw a crime happen, but this poor guy has forgotten it. I'm going to recover a lost memory. I wish I could do this with a student in a live class. It works better, but okay, we'll do this fake video demo. You're getting very sleepy, very sleepy. Are you sleepy? Yes, I'm sleepy. Okay. Do you remember when you were 6 years old? Yes, I do. Do you remember living in the apartment complex over on the riverside? A white and pink apartment building? Yes, I do. Do you remember seeing this guy in the neighborhood around your apartment complex? Oh yeah, I remember him. Do you remember seeing this guy get into an argument with that guy? Oh yeah, I remember. Do you remember, this guy, person A, pulling out a gun and shooting person B? Oh yeah, I remember that, yeah. And you remember B falling down dead and then A running away? Oh yeah, I remember that. Okay, wake up, and then this person now thinks he remembers that. We put him in a courtroom, and this person testifies, yeah, I remember when I was young and I saw him get into an argument with a man, and he pulled out a gun and he shot him dead, and he ran away. I remember that. And this poor person goes to jail because of a false memory. I have not recovered a real memory. I've planted a false memory in that person's head, and they think it's a real memory. You can find YouTube videos that show this. This is true. It's just planting a false memory. 10% of your brain. Where do you think that idea comes from? Complete nonsense. Use all of your brain. all of your brain is working all the time. Even when you're sleeping, your brain is working. The idea you use 10% of your brain is complete nonsense. It's not exactly clear where this comes from, where this idea came from. One possible source is if you see pictures of brain scans, it seems like only certain parts are lighting up. But those brain scans, like MRI, they only show higher levels of activity. It doesn't show everything, all of the activity. But there is activity going on that MRIs can't see. That's maybe part of the reason, but there's no truth to this. We're going to talk later about why people believe in this and whether you should believe in everything, and I'm going to define pop psychology a little bit later. But I want to leave you with a few more questions for you to discuss, and we'll answer next time. Are there differences between the left and the right sides of your brain? Are there significant differences in what they do or how they work? Is this verbal? Does this side of your brain do verbal and math skills? Is this side of your brain analytical? Is it true that this is analytical and this side is the creative or intuitive side of your brain that does art and music and stuff like that? Is that true? What do you think? What about differences between men and women's brains? Are there significant differences in their brains, and whether men are just naturally better at math than women, and women are naturally better at language and verbal skills than men? Is that true, do you think? In other words, are there cognitive differences between men and women? Intellectual differences between men and women? Men are better at, maybe you've heard men are better at math, or men are better at kind of visual spatial or kinesthetic stuff, visual spatial skills. Women are better at multitasking and verbal skills. Multitasking is like doing 2 or more things at once. Are women really better at that? Is there any truth to that? What about dreams? Do your dreams mean anything? Do your dreams have any symbolic meaning? Is it true that most of your dreams mean something symbolic or profound, and you need a psychologist or a dream interpreter to unlock those secret messages your brain is telling you? Is there any truth to that? I wish you to discuss that. Think about that for next time. So before we go, I want to mention maybe a couple of other kinds of pop psychology, and also say something more about one type of popular belief that I mentioned earlier. You might have heard of the Enneagram test. This is an old test of personality types. It goes back to, I think, ancient Greece. You might have heard of the Enneagram. It is from a Greek word for 9, ennea, 9 in Greek. And it is a personality test that classifies you into one of 9 categories. And it kind of makes this little circle diagram of the different personality types, and kind of says if you're here and this type, and the person the opposite type from you may or may not be a good match for you in a relationship or something like that. It is maybe similar to the MBTI in terms of classifying people into fairly simple categories, which sound neat, but they're actually pretty vague categories. They're not very precise, especially in terms of modern psychology and how psychologists really understand the complexity of human personality and behavior and emotions and thinking styles and all that. It's kind of simplistic. It's too simple. It's simplistic to be really accurate. I don't mean to say don't do it. It might be helpful for you a little bit in terms of understanding yourself, just like the MBTI, but it's even less precise and less scientific than the MBTI. So yeah, you can have fun with it, sure, but it's not at all precise or scientific. And there's no really basis no real basis for some of the claims it makes for different personality types and how they might go together in social relationships. Let me say a little bit more about backward masking. We're going to maybe talk about this later in the semester. I'll refer you to a video example of it again. In case you've ever heard of this idea, and again, it's the claim that some rock songs contain words that say something forward, like the famous Queen song, another one, Bites the Dust. And so Bites the Dust, it's kind of a victory or a popular song in sports events, because another one, Bites the Dust, like another, biting the dust is a metaphor, an idiom meaning to be defeated, to suffer a loss. The other team bit the dust. We beat them. We're the champions. So another one, Bites the Dust. Some claim, well, if you play it backwards, it says, I decided to try marijuana. Listen to recordings of it on YouTube where people play it backwards. It's gibberish. It's nonsense. There's nothing to it. There is no way that a rock singer in a recording studio could possibly sing anything that makes sense forward in English that also means something and makes sense when played backwards. Try it yourself. Try it in a recording software app in your phone. Try to sing Another One Bites the Dust so that backwards it says, I decided to try marijuana. That kind of claim is such nonsense. And claims have been made like this for so many different rock songs and other kinds of songs. Aside from the fact that it's impossible to talk backwards or to say a sentence forward so that it means something, another sentence backwards, try it, it's impossible. It's also impossible for the human brain to kind of decode the language that's backwards. That would mean we somehow evolved in our brains an ability to understand backwards speech. And why in the world would humans ever have developed that kind of an ability? It's crazy talk. It really is. And as a linguist, I'm familiar with the structure of language. There is a lot of abstract structure in language which you are not aware of, especially in the grammar and the sound structure of language. You don't know it's there because you do it subconsciously. It's subconscious. And you don't know what's going on in your head when you're speaking, when you're listening to language, when you're reading something. There's a lot going on because there's a lot of abstract structure in language. And it's not exactly symmetrical. In some ways it is, but in some ways it's not symmetrical or balanced, so that there's no way you could do it backwards if it's not symmetrical. Symmetrical means like both sides are the same. In the abstract structure of language, it's not symmetrical. It's pretty complex. And if you want to know more, you can go for a master's degree, a saksa, or a PhD in linguistics and find out what I'm talking about. But there's a lot of nonsense claims out there about language and about learning, and about education, and about psychology. And we'll come to more of these in the semester because, again, these affect you. People might say, you want to learn English, just do this. Or you get a job teaching English someday, and maybe some parents come to you with some really crazy ideas about how you should teach their kids based on some pop psychology that they've read on the internet. A lot of pop psychology, we're going to look at the problems behind it, because this affects our lives. We make decisions sometimes about how to study, how to learn, what to study, based on things we hear about, learning and education, or especially when you're a parent someday. You might be a parent someday, and you're going to be making important decisions about your kids' education. You want to make sure you make informed, intelligent decisions. You want to make sure you make intelligent decisions about your life and the life of your children, lives of people around you as an adult. So it's important to think carefully. And for me, that is the one focus in this class. This is a conversation class, but in order to converse intelligently, you need to understand what you're talking about as a business professional, or as a teacher, or if you're a government worker, working in government or something like that, or just voting, where you make decisions that affect your life and the lives of others. Okay, so we'll continue this next time, and this seems like a lot of psychology, but as we get along in the course, we'll get more into the conversation part of the course, as much as we can, given the fact that we are limited to online lessons, which are not very interactive, but I'm going to think about what to do about that. So I'll have you fill out a Google form about some of these questions, and I will see you later.